Welcome to the Alcoholics Anonymous Big Book Workshop Foundation meeting. In this episode, a recovered alcoholic uses her experience and knowledge to walk us through the fundamentals of alcoholism and Alcoholics Anonymous. Find out more at ladiesbigbook.com. Thank you for listening.
Hi, everybody. My name is Hannah, and I am a recovered alcoholic. It is such a pleasure and honor to be here. My sobriety date is October 5th of 2007. I'm not sure if I said that earlier. And man, foundation means like the basics. I can't build on something if I don't have a good foundation. So I'm just going to go a lot through the book and also talk a little bit about my experience with this stuff too. One of the first things that I want to point out, so I will say on the cover page, it says Alcoholics Anonymous, the story of how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. I will tell you that in January 2nd of 2008, I arrived from the Lou Sterrett jail in Dallas over to the Dallas County Judicial Treatment Center, which is a 6-month treatment center that you are court mandated to. It is, there's no yoga, there's no horseback riding. It's basically treatment in jail. So that's where I went. But the funny thing about it is that I remember one night, people talking about someone had introduced themselves as recovered. And other people threw a big old fit. It almost came to blows, which is so ridiculous, right? But people are really passionate about this, and they think that that we can't be recovered, that we're always recovering. And I introduced myself as a recovered alcoholic, and it says right here how thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. I'm going to get more into what that actually means, but just hearing that word to me gives a lot of hope. Doesn't mean that I'm always just, if I'm recovering, I feel like I'm white knuckling it every day. And that's no way to live. And that's what I thought it was going to be. I thought that sobriety was equal to martyrdom. Okay, so let's get into step one. Step one says that I'm powerless over alcohol and that my life has become unmanageable. Actually, I'm going to take that back and backtrack just a tiny bit and explain something here. That in the preface, there's one sentence I want to read in the second paragraph. It says, because this book has become the basic text for our society and has helped such large numbers of alcoholic men and women to recovery, there exists strong sentiment against any radical changes being made in it. So this is telling me right here that this is my basic text. If I go over to Brookhaven Community College and I sign up for an economics class and they give me a textbook and I never buy it, or they say you need to have this textbook and I never get it, and I go and I take the class, I'm probably going to fail. This is my textbook. This is how I pass AA. This is what is going to guide me through this program. And it's interesting because I've gone to a lot of AA meetings and never even saw anyone ever open a book. But that's exactly why it's here for us. And also it making any changes to it. If I start making changes to any of this program, if I'm sponsoring you, then now you're working Hannah's AA, and good luck to you, because me running my life is a crap show, and Lord help me running yours, right? Okay, so the forward to the first edition, it says, we of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. So there's quite a bit in that. It says the word recovered again, and a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, which we're going to get into. And then it says that they're going to show us precisely how they recovered. And for me, I remember sitting in a lot of different classes or focus groups or whatever in treatment. And none of it seemed very concrete to me. I would hear women say, well, I gave God my life or gave God my will, and then I took it right back. And I would be like, how did you do the first part? How did you do, like, it doesn't make sense to me. And they would read they put up on the wall a thought of the day or a prayer of the day. And like, I am good for the 10 seconds it takes me to read it. Now what? I don't know what to do now. And I see it on the beam and off the beam. And I mean, I'm a very literal person. If I need to jump up and down on my left foot wearing purple socks 8 times a day, I'll do that. Like, tell me exactly what to do. Well, lo and behold, that's what's in this book. It's not these little floaty thought things that I have to try to figure out, and I don't know how to make work in my life. Okay, so let's get into this seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. So step 1 says that I am powerless over alcohol, and that my life has become unmanageable. So there's powerless over alcohol. I just thought that, I had no idea what that meant before I got in here. Actually, I had no idea what that meant till I started going to a group that explained it. And actually, luckily, there were some women from the primary purpose group who came out to Wilmer. And I hated them because like a hair in my eye. They would talk about the book. They would read out of the book. Now, other people would come from other groups and other fellowships, and they would let us talk about ourselves. And that was my favorite, because that's my favorite subject. And you're like, well, I had a hard day today, but I only have 3 months left. And then, I mean, like, I have anything to add to anybody's life. But the women from primary purpose group would come out and read out of the book and explain it, and I would tune out till probably about 3 months in. Then I finally started paying attention, thank goodness, because I am a knucklehead. And that's when I started to listen, and every week they would explain step 1. And it took me a while to really understand it. Let's get into the doctor's opinion, because he really explains this powerlessness. Okay, so page 23 in Roman numerals, which is XXVIII. Probably one of the most important paragraphs in the book, the first full paragraph there. It says, we believe, and so suggested a few years ago, that the action of alcohol on these chronic alcoholics is a manifestation of an allergy, that the phenomenon of craving is limited to this class and never occurs in the average temperate drinker. These allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all. And once having formed the habit, they found they cannot break it. Once having lost their self-confidence, their reliance upon things human, their problems pile up on them and become astonishingly difficult to solve. So these chronic alcoholics, the action of alcohol is a manifestation of an allergy. And I thought that was so silly. Like, that's something you say when you're out and like somebody hands you a beer and you're trying to be good, like, oh no, I'm allergic. But an allergy is just an abnormal reaction to something that I put in or on my body. The abnormal reaction that I have as an alcoholic is triggered in the form of a craving. So what that means is that once I start to drink, I can't control how much. And usually it's going to be way too much. The other thing that in my experience, because I always thought that if you're an alcoholic, like you were always an alcoholic, like meaning you always drank alcoholically. And I knew people like that. I knew a girl in college that was like that. I had some relatives that were like that. And that wasn't my story. I didn't start drinking alcoholically till I was probably about age 28 or 29. So I spent most of my 20s drinking like a normal person. So I didn't understand how this could happen, but the way that it works is that it's not like, so let me say that this powerlessness. So it's an allergy that I'm powerless over. For instance, I am deathly allergic to cats, deathly allergic. If I go over to a friend's house and they have a cat, I can stay for about a half hour. I can't sit down or anything. My eyes will start to swell and itch and my throat will start to close up. So my solution to my cat allergy, I don't own a cat, right? Pretty simple solution here. I have no power over my allergy to cats. I can't rub a cat in my face and will my eyes to not close. That would be ridiculous. It's the same type of phenomenon with this powerlessness over this physical craving with alcohol, that once I start to drink, I have no power over how much I'm going to drink. I have no power over the phenomenon of craving. I have lost the power of choice. Okay. And I have no control. Okay, so I just lost my train of thought. I hate when that happens. Okay. Powerlessness. Yeah. Okay. So that's the first part of step one. Now, if this were my only problem, then my solution would be just don't drink. Put the plug in the jug. Play the tape all the way through. All those great little things that we hear. But that doesn't work for me because of the second part of step one. It is a significant part of it. Like if this is step one, like, okay, pretend that I'm holding my hands really far apart. Like this is a super big distance. And this is step one. The powerlessness part of it is like this part of this much. The second part, the unmanageability, is like that is much bigger. Like it's the real tail kicker of this thing. But we have to understand the powerlessness and the allergy in order to understand what solution to apply to it. So, so the second part of step one, oh, we just started getting like all of a sudden a huge storm right here. That was crazy. The second part of step one says that my life has become unmanageable. So I even remember going to IOP when I got out of Wilmer. And I remember all of us going around and saying, well, my life is unmanageable because I'm here and because I have felonies and because I couldn't pay my rent and I slept with too many guys. And, that's why my life is unmanageable. And everybody went, like the counselors, everybody's like, yeah, right. That's why your life is unmanageable. And it makes sense because logically that sounds right. But those are my consequences. And the difference is, and this is huge because I was always trying to line my experience up with someone else. And my story doesn't fit with most people's because I was 25 years old and I could go out for 2 glasses of wine and go home. When I started drinking alcoholically, I went downhill really, really quickly. And, I'd hear people talk about going to jail. And at that time I hadn't gone to jail and I still had a job and I still had a family. And then they talk about like their story, like their past and being abused and this kind of stuff. And like, that didn't happen to me. I don't have a big, huge trump card that is my reason. So it just didn't make sense to me. But really what it is that given sufficient reason, I have every reason in the world to not drink, and I drink. So then we think, well, I'm weak-willed. I'm a bad girl. That was my favorite one. I'm a bad girl. Because I really wanted to be a good girl. That's so silly now, isn't it? Okay. So let me get back into the book. So I can back up what I'm saying. Let's get into, there's a solution. Okay, page 23 in real numbered pages. Actually, I'm going to start at the bottom of 22. It says, we're equally positive that once he takes any alcohol, whatever, into his system, something happens both in the bodily and mental sense, which makes it virtually impossible for him to stop. The experience of any alcoholic will abundantly confirm this. These observations would be academic and pointless if our friend never took the first drink, thereby setting the terrible cycle in motion. Therefore, the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body. So what that's telling me is that this physical component, this powerlessness over the phenomenon of craving is significant. But if I never put it in my body, I'm good. Now, I don't lay in bed at night thinking, oh my gosh, that cat I saw today was so cute. I would do anything to just snuggle with that cat. Like, I don't do that. I'm a dog person. Like, I mean, your cats are cute and all. Like, I can appreciate the cuteness of cats, but I don't fantasize about it. Like, I don't obsess about it. But if I'm trying to not drink, I'm trying to go a whole day without drinking. It's like I'm like a dog with a bone. And I'm either thinking about drinking or thinking about not drinking. Or I'm thinking if I can just hold off till this time. Or, it's just this mind game that I play. And maybe I'm even good for a day. Like I didn't even think about it yesterday. And then once it comes, like, I don't know when it's going to come. I don't know how hard it's going to hit me. It's like a freight train coming from any direction, any time of the day or night. And that's kind of scary. So, the simplicity of it is that it's not about my consequences, the unmanageability at all. We all have different consequences. It's simply that once I make up my mind to quit, can I stay quit? Can I manage the decision to not pick up the first drink? And I can't. As a chronic alcoholic, I can't. The goal of every alcoholic, what we want to do is control and enjoy. Those two things at the same time. Now, if the first part of step one, the powerlessness, that means I have no control. That means that once I start to drink, who knows how many I'm going to have. And if I'm controlling how much I'm drinking, there's certainly no enjoyment. I'm not enjoying it. Every once in a while, I will control it. Usually that's when my mom is in town and she's watching me because she thinks that I have a problem, but she's not for sure. So I'm drinking my wine as slow as she's drinking hers. And I'm trying to do a Jedi mind trick to hurry up, finish your stupid drink so I can get another one. I am not enjoying it if there's any control. So a lot of us come into this and we think that we're taught. Actually, we were taught this a lot at treatment, that this is a behavioral problem. And for a lot of people who end up in treatment, it is a behavioral problem. They are able to feel some pain, realize that it's not worth it, modify their behavior. I'm not going to do that again, and stick to that. Not so for the chronic alcoholic. For a chronic alcoholic, this is a mental illness. I have no defense against the first drink. It's not that I'm weak-willed. It's not that I'm a bad girl. It's not that I'm a good girl. It's none of that. It's that I am mentally ill when it comes to alcohol, and I cannot stay away from it. Maybe I can every once in a while, but I can't stay away from it. The time and place will come, and I will drink again. So skipping down a paragraph, this is probably one of my favorite paragraphs in this whole book on 23, where it says, actually a little bit ahead of that, it says, if you ask him why he started on that last bender, the chances are he will offer you any one of 100 alibis. Sometimes these excuses have a certain plausibility, but none of them really make sense in the light of the havoc an alcoholic's drinking bout creates. They sound like the philosophy of the man who, having a headache, beats himself on the head with the hammer so that he can't feel the ache. If you draw this fallacious reasoning to the attention of an alcoholic, he will laugh it off or become irritated and refuse to talk. This is my favorite line. Once in a while, he may tell the truth, and the truth, strange to say, is usually that he has no more idea why he took that first drink than you have. I absolutely relate to that, and I bet all of you do too. I had a probation officer. So before I was sent to Walmart, I was on probation, and I got caught for a relapse. There were many times that I should have been caught the rest of the time too, but this time I actually, got caught for it. And I remember my PO sitting me down, and she's like, hey, well, what happened? What caused you to go out and drink? And I was like, I'm sitting there thinking, what does she want to hear? That's all I can think, because I don't know. What does she want to hear? And I said, well, my dog died. Which my dog hadn't died, and that's like super bad karma mojo stuff to say, but I didn't know what else to say. And she was like, oh, and I'm like, yeah, that's it. I drink when bad things happen. That's what happens to me. I drink when bad things happen. And she seemed to buy it, so I rolled with it. Well, bottom line is, it doesn't matter. Good things happen, bad things happen. It's a sunny day. It's a rainy day. I can come up with 1,000 different reasons. Towards the end, none of them are even close to being justified in the light of everything that happens to me. But that's the truth of it. Okay, so on page 24, it says, the fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drink. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We are without defense against the first drink. So it says right there that I have lost the power of choice. And that relates to the unmanageability. And I misspoke a little bit earlier that the powerlessness refers to loss of control. The unmanageability refers to loss of choice. This is why if someone ever says in a meeting, well, I choose to not drink today, they may not need to be there. Or I shouldn't say that. Maybe they need to be there for, probation or something to get a paper signed. They probably don't need to be sponsoring anyone, because I absolutely have lost the power of choice. And it says that, fear can keep me sober for a little while, a week or a month. That's how much time I have till my broke brain is going to come back in and tell me to take a drink, which also is another reason why we want to get through these steps in a timely manner. There's no sitting back and just kind of waiting for it to sink in. And I'll just say from my experience that most people understand these steps better than I do, quicker. I'm kind of an idiot like that. And a lot of it was like way later than everyone else. I'd be like, oh, that's what that means. But I'll tell you that didn't matter. I didn't have to get it. I got it eventually. I just was willing. I just knew that I wanted to be different, and I was willing to do whatever my sponsor told me to do. And that was enough until I actually understood it. I think a lot of times we can get really hung up on trying to understand it. And you don't necessarily have to, just do it. It's a program of action. And it does say that there's no middle of the road solution, which is too bad, right? Because I am a middle of the road girl in everything I do in life. Okay, so on page 30, one more thing that I want to talk about with step one. The second paragraph there, it says, we learned we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery. The delusion that we are like other people or presently may be has to be smashed. We alcoholics are men and women who have lost the ability to control our drinking. We know that no real alcoholic ever recovers control. All of us felt at times that we were regaining control, but such intervals, usually brief, were inevitably followed by still less control, which led in time to pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. We are convinced to a man that alcoholics of our type are in the grip of a progressive illness. Over any considerable period, we get worse, never better. I've yet to meet any alcoholic that really is an alcoholic that says, oh my gosh, I relapsed and it was so much better. It's a progressive disease. It always gets worse. And I don't know about you, but I would always hear about this bottom. And people would say that about me all the time. Well, she hasn't hit her bottom yet. And I was like, okay, so I have 2 felonies. Like after one, I thought, okay, 1 felony is bottom. And then like I go to jail and then I get out and like, then I get 2 felonies and I'm like, okay, so then that's a bottom. 2 surely is a bottom. Then it's like, it's kind of like I'm going to jail enough that like I'm the one that that knows what, like I'm helping the new people. I'm explaining how to, make your bed so it's kind of like a pillow and never go in the shower without shower. Like I know the drill, and I'm seeing people that I recognize because we all go in and out. I mean, if I think back to what I wanted to be when I was young, like graduating high school or, or college, whatever, that certainly was never something that I thought would be a part of my future. And I remember the first time going to jail and being sitting in this holding cell with these people. And like, there was some like a couple people almost got in fights. And this one lady's like made a collect call and she's yelling at people to put money on her books. And I remember being like, what does that mean, putting money on your books? Like I was so naive. And I felt like I didn't belong. And that was a good thing. Right. And then later it got to where like I did belong. And I look back and like, to me, that should be my bottom, right? That should be a bottom, but it wasn't, because I'll always drink more. So it's not about, and a bottom is not about a set of consequence. A bottom is an internal condition. And this is what makes it relatable across alcoholism and amongst all of us alcoholics, because it's not about what happened to you. It's a very, very good descriptor is what I just read. Pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. That's what a bottom feels like. That's what step 1 feels like. I love that. Okay. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, and I'm going to go into page 44. But I just want to say one last thing about this mental part of it, that, my brain is supposed to protect me. My brain protects me from stepping out in the highway in front of I'm really good at learning from pain. When I was 18, my parents and I went to a really nice dinner. I think it was maybe my birthday or something like that. And I ordered fettuccine Alfredo. We were in Kansas City, and we were staying at this hotel, and I got food poisoning, and I was up all night, like throwing up, and the other end, I mean, it was terrible, terrible, terrible. And so I think I'm 47 now. I'm pretty sure I'm 47 now. And I'll tell you how many times I've had fettuccine Alfredo since I was 18. Zero. Because it reminds me of that. And I learn from pain. I'm really good at modifying my behavior, except with alcohol. Like with alcohol, it's like my brain is trying to kill me. Like my brain doesn't say, Hannah, it's a really bad idea. You're going to lose everything. You're going to go to, you're on your last rope. You're looking at hard time in prison if you violate your probation again. And he is certainly going to leave you. And my brain says, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Do it again. My brain doesn't protect me with this. It's because it's not behavioral. Okay. So on page 44 in We Agnostics, it says these are only 2 questions we really need to ask if we are trying to diagnose ourselves. I would do the 100-page or 100-question quizzes online or whatever. And then I'd go back and I'd change some of them until I got to the answer, till I was categorized as maybe not that bad. Because at one time, when I was 26, I totally only had 2 drinks and went home. Okay, it says, in the preceding chapters, you've learned something of alcoholism. We hope we have made clear the distinction between the alcoholic and the non-alcoholic. First question, if when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely, or it's not even an and question, or if when drinking, you have little control over the amount you take, you're probably alcoholic. So that first question is asking about, they've kind of flipped it. They're asking about the mental obsession. If I find I cannot quit entirely, or if I have little control over the amount I take, that's the powerlessness, the physical component. Okay, so there I am. I'm probably alcoholic. And it's going to tell me about how you may be facing you may be suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience will conquer. Dun, dun, dun. On the next page, it says lack of power. That was our dilemma. We had to find a power by which we could live, and it had to be a power greater than ourselves. Has to be a power greater than ourselves. So it can't be a Coke can or a doorknob. I've heard all that before. I've gotten yelled at for saying this before. But I have power over those. I will tell you that, at the bottom of the page, it talks about people that are really grindy about this whole spiritual stuff. It says, we know how he feels. We've shared his honest doubt and prejudice. Some of us have been violently anti-religious. To others, the word God brought up a particular idea of him with which someone had tried to impress them during childhood. I mean, I get that. The word God was like nails on a chalkboard to me. And I would just roll my eyes. I mean, I grew up kind of going to church. They had a 9 a.m. service that was 30 minutes, and that was what we went to so my dad could get on the golf course. And we didn't go very often. I was really bitter about some things about church. I'd gone on a ski trip with some friends that had belonged to a different church, and they would kick you out if you got divorced, and women shouldn't work and should stay home and cook. And the church that we went to infrequently was kind of the opposite of that. And the minister found out that was where I went, and he was super mean to me the rest of the trip. And so what I would do is I was blaming religion and God for like that guy who's a youth minister. He's just a jerk and he's human. And I'm blaming him. Like, that's what's wrong with God. I had a lot of different things like that probably really weren't that big of a deal, but I sure made them into one. When I was probably about 8 years old, and my parents didn't have me, like when I was in ninth grade, I was baptized and went through not commute, I don't know, whatever it's called. I can't even think of it. Whatever you do in ninth grade, blah, 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 that thing. And I was baptized because I hadn't been baptized as a baby. And I had this friend, I was over her house, and she said, somehow it came up, and she said, oh my God, you've never been baptized. I said, no. And she said, you know that if you die right now, that you will wander the earth for eternity as a ghost. You were like basically telling me you were screwed. And I was like, oh my God, like I couldn't believe this. And that my parents just screwed me over like that. And this is in the like early 80s, pre-seatbelt law. And my mom came to pick me up in our Woody station wagon, and I put my seatbelt on. She's like, what are you doing? Because I never wore. And I told her I was really mad at her. And then she was like, that's ridiculous. Blah, blah, blah. Well, as I got older, I was like, my idea on that whole thing that happened, like, I don't even know what her religion actually, if she maybe misunderstood, it doesn't matter. But this is what I did in my head. Any religion that would teach that, so that a child like me would be told that and they think that that's okay, well, screw them, because that's not right. I mean, I just like on my spiritual high top for like towards the very, very end in 2006, 2007, I'm drinking myself to death on my sofa. I haven't showered in days. I haven't paid rent. I mean, it's like, the days are very, very dark. And there's a story on the news about a minister in Colorado Springs that had been of the mega church that had been caught. He was married with kids and had been caught having an affair with a male prostitute and doing meth. Like my kind of guy, right? And I'm like pointing at the TV as I'm drinking myself to death. Like, see, that's what's wrong. That's what's wrong with the religion. Like, you know, I don't see the irony in this at all at the time, but I do now. And what I realized is that I was prejudiced about religion. I was holding all these human people against God. So one of the things that it talks about in here that allowed me to open my mind just a tiny bit is that we all have some sort of a moment where we feel something bigger than us. For me, my go-to is always, don't have it very often here, but when I grew up in Nebraska and then lived in Colorado, it was frequent where when it's snowing outside, and especially at night, it's dark and you step outside and the snowflakes are coming down and it is so quiet. I have goosebumps right now just explaining it. Like I feel God in that. And I've always felt God in that. And that's what it talks about. It says, yet in other moments we found ourselves thinking when enchanted by starlit night, that who then made all this? There was a feeling of awe and wonder, but it was fleeting and soon lost. They say that there's no atheists in a foxhole. I certainly know that every time the red and blue lights were behind me, I was praying. And I was, I didn't see the irony in that either. The good thing about step 2 is that you don't even have to give a yes to move on. You just have to give a maybe. In the middle of page 46, it says, we found that as soon as we were able to lay aside prejudice and express even a willingness to believe in a power greater than ourselves, we commenced to get results. And then it further down, it says, our own conception, however inadequate, were sufficient to make the approach and to effect a contact with him. As soon as we admit the possible existence of a creative intelligence, a spirit of the universe underlying the totality of things, we began to be possessed of a new sense of power and direction, provided we took other simple steps, because there's always a catch, right? The fact that they used other terms in here for God was that opened a lot of doors for me, because initially I was cool with saying spirit of the universe. But like I said, God was like nails on a chalkboard to me. And my first sponsor, this isn't in the book, but this was something she said to me that I thought really put things in the right perspective for me. She said, if there's a scale, like I keep doing this and you guys can't see it. there's a scale from 0 to 100, and 0 is an atheist, does not believe God exists, and 100 is the most spiritually enlightened person in the world. To take step 2, you just got to move off of 0. Like, you don't even have to be a 1. You can hover your foot over the line. You don't even have to step down. And I remember her asking me that, and I thought I was being like, I was going to kind of test her, and I said, well, I'm about a 1. And she's like, great, let's move on. And I'm like, I thought that I was going to have to lie and say that I had this great understanding and belief in this God that I thought I was going to have to lie, and I didn't. And man, is that cool. All I have to do is say, maybe this will work. In the middle of page 47 is the perfect summation of step 2. It says, we need to ask ourselves but one short question. Do I now believe, or am I even willing to believe, that there is a power greater than myself? As soon as a man can say that he does believe or is willing to believe, we emphatically assure him that he is on his way. How cool is that, to be emphatically assured that you are on your way by just saying maybe? That is so cool. And I, initially when I would see the steps on the wall, and when I thought I knew what it was before I actually read this book, I would confuse step 2 with step 12. And I thought I had to already have this conception of God. We didn't just get so screwed up on this stuff. Like, there was always, sorry, I probably made a bunch of noise. There were always a bunch of women in jail that knew the Bible backwards and forwards, and they would pray over you, and they would do prayer circles, and they would, I was always impressed with their biblical knowledge. But then I'd hear about what they were in there for. And I'd be like, is this hypocritical? I just didn't get it. And then, they would talk about how great, they're changed and this and that, and they go out and then they come back, and I'd be like, okay, I don't get that. They know the Bible, so they must know how to apply this more to their life than I do. And yet they're doing way worse crimes than I am, hurting other people and stuff. And it just, but that's not what it's about. Again, there's me applying that people that are trying to seek God have to be perfect. And they don't. That was a big eye opener for me too. You guys probably already all knew all of that. Okay, so I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. The chapter We Agnostics is just awesome for breaking down all of this stuff. But let's go into how it works and talk briefly about step 3. I still got a little time. Awesome. Okay. So on page 58, how it works, I'll just say, because this isn't, this is pretty amazing. It says, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. It could also probably say, rarely have we seen a person thoroughly follow our path. Bottom line is that this stuff isn't easy. But how, my life was a mess. I would have for sure been dead long before now had I continued on the way I was. So if I'm given a lifeline, I think I should go after it with everything I've got. And that means that, okay, let me read. It says, if you've decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, they repeat that a few times, then you are ready to take certain steps. On the next page, it says, half measures availed us nothing. I love that because that's a bump. Like I said, I'm a half measures girl. I put half measures into everything. I put half measures into relationships, into school, into work. If I think I'm about to get fired, I'll quit. I had a job, I was so entitled. I had a job, this is when I was in Denver, that I had my own office that with a door that closed and it didn't have a window on it. It was so great. So what I would do is I would close that door, and I had a whole system, because you can't just put your head down on the desk and take a nap, because if someone comes in, you'll have a big red spot on your forehead, right? So I would find a way to hold my head up like this and sleep, so that if someone knocked and opened the door, I could just immediately go, yeah, how are you? Because I was always hungover. And I felt like that was perfectly acceptable, to let these people pay me a ton of money and nap on their dime. So So half measures. I'm really good at that. Except for one thing. Can you guess what that is? I bet you can. I am a gold medalist, A+ student in drinking. I would have no money, nothing to pawn, no friends, and I was never, ever, ever without. Ever. I might be terrible at trying to make plans to get grocery shopping done or see a friend or whatever, but I would always plan to make sure I had enough booze. Always, always, always. So that's the kind of effort that I'm going to have to put into my recovery. So it says half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. What does that mean? Here's the first prayer in the big book. It says, we asked his protection and care with complete abandon. So I stood at the turning point. Step 3, let's read it real quick. It says, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. And I told you I'd ask those other women in treatment. They'd say, I gave God my will, and then I took it right back. And I'd say, how'd you do the first part? And they could never answer me because it's just something cute that they had heard other people say, and they were repeating it. So this decision that I'm just making a decision. I can sit here right now and I can decide, that I'm going to have Whataburger for dinner. But do I have Whataburger in front of me? No. Like, I still have to go get it. I'm just making a decision. A decision is quick. How to turn my will and my lives. And my will and my life is my thought and my action. I don't know how to do this. If we knew how to do that, it'd be a 3-step program. We'd all be home tonight, turning our will and our life over. So I stood at the turning point. That is a fork in the road, the turning point. And I have 2 choices here. I can go this way, which is back to step 1. And I was in that place for a long time, for a few good years. My sobriety is 2007, Hannah in 2005, going to AA meetings. I thought I'd look at the steps on the wall, and I thought they were the stupidest thing I'd ever heard. They were hypocritical. They were irresponsible. And I had a look on my face that if you would have tried to approach me and ask me if I wanted any help, no one ever did. I'm sure I didn't look friendly. And I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready I didn't think I had a problem. The only thing that made me more willing was more drinking. And so maybe I just need to figure this out. Like, I'm not quite sure if I have a drinking problem, or maybe I need to do marijuana maintenance, or maybe I just need to drink on Friday nights, or just switch from the hard stuff to beer, whatever. But whatever that idea is, I have to try it, because what if it works? It might work. I have sponsored someone I have had a woman, I had sponsored her for a good couple of years, give me a call and say, you know what? I just don't know if I am an alcoholic. And she was young. She was 19 when she came in. It had probably been about 3 years. And she said, I think I need to try some controlled drinking. And I think it freaks people out that don't understand how our program works to hear, this conversation between us, with me saying, yeah, I think you do too. Let me know how it goes. And she did. And it was kind of funny, because she'd be like, yeah, I think I have the allergy, but I don't know about the obsession. Anyway, about 4 months later, she came back, and she's been back with us ever since. But she had to find that out. And I gave her I gave her the blessing to do that, because I certainly don't want her sticking around if she's not sure. So that's the turning point. So I'm at the fork of the road. This way is back to step 1, and this way is on with the rest of the steps. That's the decision that I'm making in step 3. Am I making a decision to go on with this work? Let's turn the page. It says, after the ABCs on page 60, it says, being convinced of the ABCs is what it means. We were at step 3, which is that we decided to turn our will and our lives over to God as we understood him. Just what do we mean by that? And just what do we do? The first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. On that basis, we're almost always in collision with something or somebody, even though our motives are good. Most people try to live by self-propulsion. And it goes into the whole actor example. We're taught, raised in this country, that you can come from nothing, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and make something of yourself. And that is absolutely true. But bottom line is that I've shown time and time again that I'm not good at running my own life. Left to my own devices, I will manipulate you. I will steal from you. I will con you, whatever. I've lost the privilege. So what we're trying to do is take a look at that. They give this whole example about the actor and how, he tries to get his way and then he doesn't get his way and he gets indignant and this, that. Like, that's all drama. And I used to be one of those people that would be like, I don't know what it is about me, but there's just everywhere around me, there's always drama. Well, the common factor in all of that was me. I didn't know that. On page 62, it explains it pretty well. It says, selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. Isn't that funny? It doesn't say Coors Light right there. It's self. So here's how self manifests. Driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity, we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt us seemingly without provocation, but we invariably find that at some time in the past, we've made decisions based on self, which later place us in a position to be hurt. And we're going to get a real clear idea of what this means in our fourth and fifth step. I don't have to really understand that just yet. All I really need to understand at this point is that the booze isn't the problem. The problem is me. And I'm willing, sorry, I keep bumping that. And I'm willing to dive deeper to figure out what that means. For example, I thought that, my sister is 8 years older than me, and she and my mom will kind of butt heads. And I thought I was the peacemaker of the family. So if my mom gets mad at my sister, like, I'll go to my mom and I'll say, well, she just means blah, blah, blah. And then I'll go to my sister and say, well, mom just meant blah, blah, blah. And I make everybody happy again because I'm the peacemaker. I had no idea that I'm actually being super manipulative, and I'm arranging it so that everybody, like, I look good. My mom and my sister are adults. They can figure out how to get along in their, like, I could be depriving them of spiritual growth. Maybe they need to figure this stuff out. It's not my place. That's a big lesson for me because I thought I was just so helpful. But that's where I'm gonna learn really quickly in my fourth and fifth step how self manifests in me. And then in the third step prayer, this is what we do with our sponsor and God. I said it on my knees. And it talks about that this is my commitment. I'm going to make this promise to this God of my understanding, at that point for me, of my not understanding, and my sponsor, that I am going to do this work to the best of my ability, meaning step 4, because I haven't even taken any action yet. I'm going to do this really, really, like, the best that I'm committed. I'm all in. And in return, God is going to take away my difficulties that stand in the way of my helpfulness to others. It's not about like, he's going to make my life better so that I'm happy. It's about me being helpful to others now. And I remember at the time thinking, that doesn't sound so great. Like, I'd rather just be happy. Like, I didn't understand the joy that would come from helping others, which it does. It's unbelievable how much more joyful that is than anything that could ever just come to me on my own, to see others recover and to actually, for the first time ever, have a purpose. Because I am uniquely, like, if you are an alcoholic and you can work these steps and you get free of this, even if you haven't really sponsored much yet, or you think like, I don't know how to do, like, I hope if you're just now starting to sponsor, you say, I don't really know how to do this, because that's how you should feel. If you say, oh yeah, I got this, no problem, then that might be a little worrisome. We all start out that way. We all have to learn. The great thing is that God's the one in charge, not me. And my only job is to point people to this power and show people what I've done. But I am uniquely qualified. I am a gutter drunk. I should not be alive. And the fact that I am, and I'm actually thriving, is an absolute miracle. That is attractive to other people. And so I have a duty to pass that on to others. And for the first time in my life, I actually have a purpose. I don't know if that's something that anybody else has ever struggled with, but I remember, gosh, at one point, like, I was in sales and I was like, I had a an office job where I'd wear like, I mean, I'm going to tell you how old I am now, like the navy blue suit with pantyhose and my heels and all that. And I thought I wanted the look of the professional, but I didn't really care. I had no passion. And I remember thinking like, what could I be passionate about? I have no artistic ability. I thought, well, teachers are really passionate. Maybe I should teach. And then I'm like, well, I don't really like kids all that much. So maybe not. I mean, like, I just remember thinking like, I just wanted something to be passionate about. And now I have that. God put that in front of me. And that is the coolest thing ever. If I would have, if things would have gone exactly how I thought they were going to go, which I thought they were going to go pretty great once I started to get into this stuff, I would have sold myself short. God has done way more cool things for me than I ever thought possible. I think that's all I had. So my glasses, like I can't even, that's where I have to read. So I have to do this. It's 8:25. So I'll stop there. I thank you guys so much for letting me be a part of this. I'm truly honored.
Thank you for listening to the Alcoholics Anonymous Big Book Workshop. This recording is not associated with any AA group or AA World Services. Find out more at ladiesbigbook.com.